Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for watching. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made Dr. Finkelstein from The Night Before Christmas. I've already made Jack and Sally, so be sure to check those videos out. I will link them below, but I really wanted to make this dude. I had the idea for having the removable skull, so I hope you enjoy the video and let's get right into it. I'm starting out with two 6-inch cakes I've leveled and cut in half, and I'm going to be filling that with some Swiss meringue buttercream using my small offset spatula. Once my cake was stacked up, I grabbed a serrated knife and I wanted to start carving out my cake. So I'm going around the top edge first and just rounding it out. I continued to make little cuts. It's way easier to take more off than it is to put it back, so just take your time with this. My goal is just to create the roundness of the bottom of Dr. Finkelstein's head. This was the final shape that I ended up with. And then I grabbed a cake board and put that on top, and I'm flipping my cake over. I decided that my cake was a little bit too tall, so I just grabbed my knife again and trimmed a little bit off the top. Now that I have the shape that I want, I'm grabbing some ganache and my small offset spatula again, and I'm applying a thin layer of that all the way around my cake, and this is going to trap in any crumbs so they're not going to show up in my final ice. I put that in the fridge for about 25 minutes to chill, and once you can touch it with your finger and none of it comes off, it's ready for the final layer. To help me get my cake as smooth as possible, I'm using a piece of cardstock. You could also use a piece of acetate. This just bends, so it's going to allow you to get your ganache as smooth as possible. For all the ganache that accumulated on the top edge of my cake, I just pulled that into the center gently using my spatula. I put my cake back in the fridge to chill, and in the meantime, I'm going to start working on the skull. I've got some white chocolate in a bowl here. You could also just use white candy melts, and I'm melting that down on 30-second intervals in the microwave. I'm pouring that chocolate into a 6-inch ball pan, and I'm just making sure the entirety of the inside of that pan is covered and then letting the excess chocolate drip out. Once the first layer had dried, I'm adding another layer of chocolate, and you want to make sure that chocolate reaches all the way up to the edge of the ball pan. You want to have a pretty uniform thickness going all the way around, and then again letting that excess chocolate drip out. I put the pan in the freezer for about 10 minutes to set, and then when I turned it over, I did have to finagle it a little bit, but the chocolate did release. If you are having a hard time with this, you can line your ball pan with saran wrap before you put the chocolate in there, and it'll be easier for you to get it out. Moving back to my cake, I'm rolling out some white fondant to about 1/8 of an inch thick on my cornstarch surface. I picked that up with my fondant roller and draped it over my chilled cake. If you find that your ganache has set quite dry, then you can just brush the whole thing with a little bit of water or confectioner's glaze before you add your fondant. Working quickly with my hands and my fondant smoother, I pushed all the air out from the top of my cake and then worked my way down, just pulling out all the little pleats until I reached the bottom. I cut away some of the excess and then balled that in my hands, and I'm going to use that as a little makeshift fondant smoother, and I'm buffing that all over my cake. Once I was happy with how it looked, I just cut away the rest of that excess using my pizza cutter. Because I want the skull to match the color of the cake, I'm going to cover that in fondant as well. I've just covered the entire of the outside with a little bit of shortening before I added my fondant. To make sure everything fit nicely in place, I just did a little tester here just to make sure there was no overhang. Moving on to the decorations, I'm starting with his mouth. His mouth is a bit of an odd shape. Think of kind of like a duck bill almost. That's what I started out with. I made sure that center point was just a little bit higher and then the sides pressed against the cake. And with my fondant tool, I'm just marking in the line in the front of his mouth where his lips would part and just using my fingers to thin those out a bit. I added an oval of that white fondant right on the top where his mouth met the head, and then using my fondant tool, just marked in 2 little nostrils. Using my fondant tool again, I'm just marking in some lines around the mouth. For his sunglasses, I have 2 circles of black fondant, and I'm just pressing those up against either side of the nose. I attached 2 half circles of fondant with a little bit of water for the ears, and then using my fondant tool, just indenting for the inner ear part. I added more lines on the forehead area, and then 2 lines just coming off of those sunglasses. I think these are supposed to be his eyebrows, but they're kind of shaded the same way as everything else, so they might just be more stress lines. I added a strip of black fondant curved over the nose to attach each of the sunglass rims, and then another strip of black fondant to go over the ears. I just added these pieces with a little bit of shortening. I placed the skull onto the head and attached these little pieces of fondant, and these are going to be like the bolts, I guess, or some sort of machinery for how he gets his skull to open and close. I'm making sure to put these just on the skull and not have them touching the bottom part of the cake. Using a piping tip, I cut out some circles of white fondant, and I'm just attaching those to the very top of those pieces. To make the doctor look a little more grungy, I have some black color dust with a fluffy brush, and I'm just going around the whole thing, just doing a light brush over the whole cake, but then over areas where there would be a little more shadow, I'm just making it darker. I want all of the lines on his face to stand out a bit more, his nostrils, in his ears, and then around the area where the skull meets the head especially. If you get a bit messy with the dust, you can just do a cleanup with some paper towel or a clean Q-tip. So once all of the main shading was done, I took the skull off and then just went around the rim with a little bit of that black dust. I'm adding a little bit of buttercream to the center of my cake, and then I have this little 4-inch layer that I'm adding on there. This is going to make it so my brain isn't a big hunk of fondant. I'm doing a crumb coat and a final ice on this, but I'm not worried about making it super smooth because it's all going to be covered anyway. I've rolled out some red fondant that I added a little bit of burgundy and black to, and I'm just covering up that top cake and trimming away the excess at the bottom. The picture of his brain I could find, it just looked like it was basically swirls. So it's not going to be like typical brain anatomy. I just have that same red shade that I'm rolling out into these long snakies and then coiling them up. I did add a line down the center of the brain just to keep it kind of separate so you have the 2 different sides. I tried to mirror each side so they looked pretty much the same, and then for any of those gaps where I couldn't make the swirls meet, I just filled them in with little bits of fondant. I did a little test to make sure that the skull fit and the brain wasn't touching it. I didn't have any issues with the weight of the skull on the cake, but if you're worried about it being too heavy, you can add 2 little dowels on either side of the head right where that skull would touch it. To make the brain match the grunginess of the rest of the cake, I'm just taking more of that black color dust and dusting it into all the little nooks and crannies. And this was the final result, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you did. I have a lot more Halloween cakes coming your way, so keep your eyes peeled for those. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.